All right. Woo! Talking of ghosts, Johnson said, "It is wonderful that 5,000 years have now elapsed since the creation of the world." A little bit off. "And still it is undecided whether or not there has ever been an instance of the spirit of any person appearing after death. All argument is against it, but all belief is for it." He said, "John Wesley's conversation is good, but he is never at leisure. He is always obliged to go at a certain hour. This is very disagreeable to a man who loves to fold his legs and have out his talk, as I do. On Friday, April 3rd, I dined with Johnson in London in a company where were present several eminent men, whom I shall not name, but distinguish their parts in the conversation by different letters." All right, so you might want to take out a pencil and paper because I'm not going to repeat this again. It's very confusing. So, in the following part, I don't even know how useful this will be, but in the following part, C will mean chemist, which means Fordyce. So C is for Fordyce, I guess, and he's a chemist. E is for Edmund, meaning Burke, Edmund Burke. I'm writing this down. F is for Fitzpatrick, Lord Upper Ossory. Now this one's confusing. I or J is for infidel, which is Gibbon. P is for painter, which is Reynolds. R is for R.B. Sheridan. And then it says JB's memorandum. The occasion was a meeting of the literary club. So now that we've got the characters more or less in order, let's continue. So F said, I'm just going to remind you this one time that F is Fitzpatrick, Lord Upper Ossory. I have been looking at this famous antique marble dog of Mr. Jennings, valued at 1,000 guineas, said to be Alcibiades' dog, or Alcibiades' dog, Alcibiades, his dog. Johnson said to this, "His tail, then, must be docked. That was the mark of Alcibiades' dog." E said to this, 1,000 guineas, the representation of no animal whatever is worth so much. At this rate, a dead dog would indeed be better than a living lion. That's quoting Ecclesiastes, as far as I know. Johnson said, "Sir, it is not the worth of the thing, but of the skill in forming it, when it is so highly estimated. Everything that enlarges the sphere of human powers, that shows man he can do what he thought he could not do, is valuable. The first man who balanced a straw upon his nose. Johnson, who rode upon 3 horses at a time." I guess this is a different Johnson. "In short, all such men deserve the applause of mankind, not on account of the use of what they did, but of the dexterity which they exhibited." So I wonder what Johnson would think of Guinness Book of World Records for all sorts of useless things that people did for the first time, or the best at. Anyway, Boswell said, "Yet a misapplication of time and assiduity is not to be encouraged. Addison, in one of his Spectators, commends the judgment of a king who, as a suitable reward to a man that by long perseverance had attained to the art of throwing a barleycorn through the eye of a needle, gave him a bushel of barley." Johnson said, "He must have been a king of Scotland, where barley is scarce." F said, "One of the most remarkable antique figures of an animal is the boar at Florence." Johnson said, "The first boar that it was well made in marble should be preserved as a wonder. When men arrive at a facility of making boars well, then the workmanship is not on such value. But they should, however, be preserved as examples. And it's a greatest security for the restoration of the art should it be lost." E, this is Edmund Burke, said, "We near prodigious complaints at present of immigration with an E. I am convinced that emigration makes a country more populous." J said, J is infidel, Gibbon said, That sounds very much like a paradox. He said, exportation of men, like exportation of all other commodities, makes more be produced. Johnson answered, but there would be more people where there are not emigration, provided there were food for more. He said, no, leave a few breeders, and you'll have more people than if there were no emigration. Johnson said, nay, sir, it is plain there will be more people if there are more breeders. 30 cows in good pasture will produce more calves than 10 cows, provided they have good bulls. He said, there are bulls enough in Ireland. Johnson, smiling, said, so, sir, I should think from your argument. I, Boswell, said, you said exportation of men, like exportation of other commodities, makes more be produced. But a bounty is given to encourage the exportation of corn, and no bounty is given for the exportation of men, though indeed those who go gain by it. R said here, and let's see, R is R.B. Sheridan. But the bounty of the exportation of corn is paid at home. E answered, that's the same thing. Johnson said, no, sir. R said, a man who stays at home gains nothing by his neighbor is emigrating. Boswell said, I can understand that emigration may be the cause that more people may be produced in a country, but the country will not therefore be the more populous, for the people issue from it. It can only be said that there is a flow of people. It is an encouragement to have children to know that they can get a living by immigration. R said, yes, if there were an immigration of children under 6 years of age, but they won't immigrate till they could earn their livelihood in some way at home. C said, it is remarkable that the most unhealthy countries where there are the most destructive diseases, such as Egypt and Bengal, are the most populous. Johnson said, countries which are the most populous have the most destructive diseases. That is the true state of the proposition. C said, Holland is very unhealthy, yet it is exceedingly populous. Johnson answered, I know not that Holland is unhealthy, but its populousness is owing to an influx of people from all other countries. Disease cannot be the cause of populousness, for it not only carries off a great proportion of the people, but those who are left are weakened and unfit for the purpose of increase. This one's a little tedious to read. I wish I had like a whole, we could do a whole play reading and I could have different people do the different characters here. R said, Mr. E, I don't mean flatter, but when posterity reads one of your speeches in Parliament, it will be difficult to believe that you took so much pains, knowing with certainty that it could produce no effect, that no one, not one vote, would be gained by it. Eve said, waving her compliment to me, I shall say in general that it is very well worthwhile for a man to take pains to speak well in Parliament. A man who has vanity speaks to display his talents, and if a man speaks well, he gradually establishes a certain reputation and consequence in the general opinion, which sooner or later will have its political reward. Besides, though not one vote is gained, a good speech has its effect. Though an act which has been ably opposed passes into a law, yet in its progress it is modeled. It is softened in such a manner that we see plainly that minister has been told that the members attached to him are so sensible of its injustice or absurdity from what they have heard that it must be altered. Johnson said, and sir, there is a gratification of pride. Though we cannot outvote them, we will outargue them. They shall not do wrong without it being shown both to themselves and to the world. He answered, the House of Commons is a mixed body. I accept the majority, which I hold to be pure, smiling, but I take the whole House. Oh, let me read that again. A little bit more panache to that reading. He said, the House of Commons is a mixed bag. I accept the minority, which I hold to be pure. But I take the whole house. It is a mass by no means pure, but neither is it wholly corrupt, though there is a large proportion of corruption in it. There are many members who generally go with the minister who will not go all lengths. There are many honest, well-meaning country gentlemen who are in Parliament only to keep up the consequence of their families. Upon most of these, a good speech will have influence. Johnson said, "We are all more or less governed by interest, but interest will not make us do everything. In a case which admits of doubt, we try to think on the side which is for our interest and generally bring ourselves to act accordingly. But the subject must admit of diversity of coloring and must receive a color on that side. In the House of Commons there are members enough who will not vote what is grossly unjust or absurd. No, sir, there must always be right enough or appearance of right to keep wrong in countenance." Boswell said, I said, "There is surely always a majority in Parliament who have places or who want to have them, and who therefore will be generally ready to support government without requiring any pretext." He said, "True, sir, the majority will always follow quo clamor vocat et turba vivantium, or whither the shouting calls us in the applauding populace, from Horace's Odes." I said, "Well, now, let us take the common phrase. Place hunters. I thought they had hunted without regard to anything, just as their huntsman, the minister, leads, looking only to the prey." There's a footnote here for that. Lord Bolingbroke, who, however detestable as a metaphysician, must be allowed to have had admirable talents as a political writer, thus describing the House of Commons in his letters to Sir William Wyndham. "You know the nature of that assembly. They grow, like hounds, fond of a man who shows them game, and by whose halloo they are used to be encouraged." Now Jay said, who is Jay again? I forget. Jay is, the infidel, Gibbon. "But taking your metaphor, you know that it is hunting. That in hunting there are few so desperately keen as to follow without reserve. Some do not choose to leap ditches and hedges and risk their necks, or gallop over steeps, or even to dirty themselves in bogs and mire." Boswell said, "I am glad there are some good, quiet, moderate political hunters." He said, "I believe in any body of men in England I should have been in the minority. I have always been in the minority." P, the painter, I forget who that is, but it's a painter, said, "The House of Commons resembles a private company. How seldom is any man convinced by another's argument. Passion and pride rise against it." R said, "What would be the consequence if a minister, sure of a majority in the House of Commons, should resolve that there should be no speaking at all upon his side?" He said, "He must soon go out. That has been tried, but it was found it would not do." Well, that's interesting, thinking about the Senate, or the U.S. Senate in the House of Representatives. Anyway, continuing on, E said at this point, "The Irish language is not primitive. It is Teutonic, a mixture of the northern tongues. It has much English in it." Johnson answered, "It may have been radically Teutonic, but English and High Dutch have no similarity to the eye, though radically the same. Once, when looking into Low Dutch, I found in a whole page only one word similar to English, strom, like stream, and it signified tide." E said, "I remember having seen a Dutch sonnet in which I found this word, Roesnopies, Roesnopies. Nobody would at first think that this could be English, but when we inquire, we find rose, R-O-E-S, rose, and nopi, N-O-P-I-E, knob. So we have rosebuds." Johnson said, I have been reading Thickney's Travels, which I think are entertaining. I said, What, sir, a good book? Johnson said, Yes, sir, to read once. I do not say you are to make a study of it and digest it, and I believe it to be a true book in his intention. All travelers generally mean to tell truth, though Thickness observes, upon Smollett's account of his alarming a whole town in France by firing a blunderbuss and frightening a French nobleman till he made him tie on his portmanteau, that he would be loath to say Smollett had told 2 lies in 1 page. But he had found the only town in France where these things could have happened. Travelers must often be mistaken in everything except when a mensuration can be applied. They may honestly differ. There has been of late a strange turn in travelers to be displeased. E said, From the experience which I have had, and I have had a great deal, I have learned to think better of mankind. Johnson said, From my experience, I have found them worse in commercial dealings, more disposed to cheat than I had any notion of, but more disposed to do one another good than I had conceived. J said, Less just and more beneficent. Johnson said, And really it is wonderful, considering how much attention is necessary for men to take care of themselves and ward off immediate evils which press upon them. It is wonderful how much they do for others. As it is said of the greatest liar that he tells more truth than falsehood, so it may be said of the worst man that he does more good than evil. I said, Perhaps from experience men may be found happier than we suppose. Johnson said, No, sir, the more we inquire, we shall find men the less happy. P said, As to thinking better or worse of mankind from experience, some cunning people will not be satisfied unless they have put men to the test, as they think. There is a very good story told of Sir Godfrey Kneller in his character of a justice of the peace. A gentleman brought his servant before him upon an accusation of having stolen some money from him. But in having come out that he had laid it purposely in the servant's way, in order to try his honesty, Sir Godfrey sent the master to prison. There's a footnote here that says, Pope thus introduced this story. Faith, in such case, if you should prosecute, I think Sir Godfrey should decide the suit, who sent the thief, who stole the cash away, and punished him that put it in his way. That's from Imitations of Horace, Book 2, Epistle 2. Johnson said, To resist temptation once is not a sufficient proof of honesty. If a servant indeed were to resist the continued temptation of silver lying in a window, as some people let it lie, when he is sure his master does not know how much there is of it, he would give a stronger proof of honesty. But this is a proof to which you have no right to put a man. You know, humanly speaking, there is a certain degree of temptation which will overcome any virtue. Now, in so far as you approach temptation to a man, you do him an injury, and if he is overcome, you share his guilt. P said, And when once overcome, it is easier for him to be got the better of again. I said, Yes, you are his seducer. You have debauched him. I have known a man, says here in a footnote, this man is Boswell himself. I have known a man resolved to put friendship to the test by asking a friend to lend him money merely with that view, when he did not want it. Johnson answered to this, That is very wrong, sir. Your friend may be a narrow man, and yet have many good qualities. Narrowness may be his only fault. Now you are trying his general character as a friend by one particular singly, in which he happens to be defective, when in truth his character is composed of many particulars. Okay, this is going to go on for a while, so I hope you wrote down what everybody's names go. Oh, it's only a couple more pages. Or maybe only one more page. I don't know. Anyway, well, I kind of like that. That was good. I enjoyed that. Till next time, bye from Boswell.